There's going to be a housing crash bigger than 2008, and it's going to happen within the next 5 years, and no one sees it coming. They don't know what to do, and no one's even talking about it. And it's not going to be like the bad loans we had before, or from Wall Street coming down and buying up all the houses and people not being able to own anything. What's going to happen is going to affect 60% of all Americans, and you're probably one of those 60% right now watching. The next crash is going to come from good loans, good borrowers who are going to lose their job and livelihood because of AI. I'm not talking about simple AI. I'm not talking about the one used for a Google search. I'm talking about the one that corporate America right now is creating and testing behind the scenes to take over jobs and take over those small tasks and the data entries and all of those things. Right now, think about it. There is a software engineer or an accountant, somebody with a good credit score. They got a $405,000 mortgage. They're paying their bills. They got the degree. They're paying the student loans off. Everything's good to go. But behind the scenes, they're creating something that's going to automate them and get them out of that career field and put them out to God knows what. You might be saying, but why would they do that? Well, according to an Indeed job study, they've already started. Major companies have already started cutting their junior hiring by 70 to 90% because AI fills those gaps in between. Junior engineers are being cut down to very small numbers because their tasks are automated with AI. And that's scary because the senior engineers are going to be retiring, and you're going to have very few juniors that can level up to a senior, and you're going to have such a very small career field. Once that was pretty big and people wanted to dream about being an engineer, it's going to be hard to even get a job as a junior engineer. So therefore, people are going to be changing degrees and changing patterns. The economy is going to be disrupted. But to really understand what's going to happen to the housing market, we have to understand that the more that AI replaces labor force, the more the housing market will collapse and we've never seen. But we have to understand what happened before. In '08, it was bad loans. It was, no doc mortgages, meaning that people could make 30 grand a year and buy a $500,000 house and over leverage their paycheck. And that system was built to fail from the start. But today, it's rock solid. The mortgage industry is rock solid. You need perfect documentation. In fact, you can't even really get approved unless you got a good credit score, 20% down. Unless you're a veteran, of course, you can, get a VA loan with zero down. But you still have to have, good income, and you still have to have a decent credit score. And that lending system actually works. But the reason why I'm really predicting this upcoming crash is because what is about to happen to the actual borrowers. Those stable jobs that are paying those good mortgages right now, they are going to vanish. The mortgage company does not care that AI took your job. They still want to collect that mortgage payment. And good loans plus vanishing income equals what I call the inverse 2008 crash. Unlike '08, there's no fixing this with better lending standards. And I know Trump wants to introduce a 50-year mortgage, and they've just adjusted approval by applying previous rental history to make you look like a better borrower. But the loans aren't the problem here. The disappearing jobs and the unemployment is going to be the issue. Which brings me to a scary data point that proves this is already starting. Every single American should be concerned with this data I'm going to share. According to McKinsey, 800 million jobs worldwide could be disrupted by AI by 2030. That's 5 years away. But here's the part nobody's talking about. The United States middle class, which is the very backbone of this country, the one who built America, sits in the highest risk category, and the majority of people are in the middle class. Nearly half the middle class workers are in roles that AI can and will replace today. Not tomorrow, not in 10 years, today. I'm talking about admin work, customer service, data entry, bookkeeping, even radiologists and financial advisors. You can literally look this up. Like, go on Google and look up where AI was literally looking at an image of a lung and diagnosed the problem in seconds. You don't even need a human to read the x-rays anymore. These are not minimum wage jobs. These are mortgage qualifying, family supporting careers that are about to be wiped out. But let me show you why this creates that perfect storm for an economic and housing crash. Think about like this. 65% of Americans own homes with a mortgage. And 57 of the work labor force will be automated with that current technology. That's nearly half the middle class workers that hold AI replaceable jobs. Now, if you do the math, millions of mortgages are being paid by jobs that will not exist in 5 years. So you have a 30-year mortgage and you have a job that's going to be gone in 5 years. Picture this: a married couple combined. They each make 100. There's 100 grand combined, 50 and 50, and their mortgage payment's $2,400. He's customer service, she's admin, and both these people get replaced by some chat GPT version that's for the corporate level. And actually, Matter of fact, ChatGPT can do most of the stuff right now on your phone, on your laptop, whatever you want it to do. It can literally do. It can run numbers. It can input data. It can build spreadsheets. It can do all kinds of stuff. But before you say that there's going to be new jobs that are created, let me just destroy that whole argument right now. Because in all the other economic eras, the agricultural and the industrial, and all these other ones, previous technology replaced human muscle. But AI replaces human minds. And that's way different in a way that we are not, just creating a new tool. We're creating a new virtual being. We're creating essentially this virtual God. And that's actually scary because there's, another way to compare something between, building a machine versus building something that can think, that can be conscious, and that can give answers. Like if you built a pressing machine, it wasn't giving you, information. The person had to put something into that thing and then it created it. Or this is where AI is literally replacing that human aspect. People are literally worried about immigrants coming across the border. And I'm a conservative myself, and I used to think the same way. Like we got to shut the border off. We got to stop these people from coming. But that immigrant, he isn't the one you got to fear here. AI is the one you have to fear because when an immigrant takes a job, the job still exists because they need housing, they need food, they need transportation, they buy groceries, they pay rent, they may buy a car. They participate in the economy somehow, some way, and they create a demand. They even pay sales tax when they buy something at a store. But when AI takes your job, that job is gone forever. AI don't buy houses, they don't rent apartments, they don't buy groceries, they don't need a car, and they definitely don't pay taxes. AI is pure economic extraction without participation. One software update can eliminate 10,000 jobs overnight. And the workers, they're still going to have a mortgage. They're still going to have bills. But now they have no income, and unemployment is not forever, nor do we have a government program to support the majority of Americans, and they're not going to be able to put everybody on welfare. So what happens? Our country is going to collapse into a socialist nation. And tell me one country that has ever succeeded that way. And I know what's going on in New York, and he wants to make everything for free. But just watch what happens, and it's going to be terrible. Just watch what happens, and I guarantee half stuff doesn't even happen because they know it's not realistic. And if you're worried about your job, stop looking at the border. You need to start looking at Silicon Valley and these big tech bros, these big tech companies. Because the scary part is that even if you have a job today, you're probably already living on the edge. You're probably already living paycheck to paycheck. Because let's be honest, right now, before AI even gets too serious, the average American family has less than $8,000 in savings. Their mortgage is $2,200, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Everything's going to their bills. They might have a couple $100 left over. And your one car repair, one medical bill, one missed paycheck that takes you completely out. And it gets worse for our future generations. Think about back in 1980, a home cost you 3 times your annual income. What is it today? It's 7 times your total income today in order to buy a house. But here's what nobody mentions. That's with 2 incomes in one household. Your grandparents, they bought a house on one salary, and you need two now. So what happens when AI eliminates one of those incomes, or better yet, both? That math already barely works, and most families are one crisis away from a disaster. And AI isn't just a crisis, it's an economic extinction event. We're literally going to make a whole class extinct. We're going to have high level entrepreneurs rich, and we're going to have deep, 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 deep poverty. What side are you going to be on? Because there is not going to be any middle ground. We're not talking about just a recession where you might find another job in 6 months. We're talking about entire career categories disappearing forever. This is not where they say they make a robot, someone got to work on the robot. This is a virtual thing that does not need anybody working on them. They get smarter by themselves. They've even figured out how to if you try to shut down the AI, it's figured out how to backdoor you and stay alive. The thing already has its own mind. It's insane. And that's what's happening right now. And that's what the dominoes are literally starting to fall already. And this could literally start maybe even a next civil war due to people being hungry or homeless Americans going crazy on the streets. It's like phase one. Phase one's literally happening today. You look at IBM. They announced that they're not hiring 7,800 jobs. And they're not firing people yet, but they're just not hiring. But when someone quits, AI takes that job. When someone retires, that position's gone. And that's how it starts. Silent and invisible because it's already happening. Now, phase two is the income shock. One company sees cost savings, real layoffs begin, but unlike previous recessions, the job doesn't come back ever. And this is the homeowner's nightmare in a timeline. First your job gets replaced, then you missed your first mortgage payment, then the second payment, and then the bank starts calling you, and then you get a foreclosure, on your door, and then guess what? You're out by 120 days later. 4 months later, that's how fast you go from middle class to homeless in an AI economy. Now moving into phase three, this is where that market is going to collapse. You multiply this by millions, that same story by millions of people, foreclosures are going to flood the market. Prices, crash in some locations, but remember that word right there, some locations. I'm going to go over that a little bit later. But the twist in this is that the regular family can't buy these cheap houses because they're either unemployed or they're terrified of becoming unemployed. And they probably can't rent because you need to have a good credit score, again, and you need to make 3 times the amount of income. So they end up going homeless or a very long wait list to get in government housing. Now, the next phase is, the corporate takeover. And this is where it gets ugly. So we have the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, and private equity firms that are sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars just waiting for this event to happen. They want to buy all the foreclosed houses for 70 cents on the dollar and then rent it back for more than the previous mortgage payment was. The American dream has become the American lease. And you've heard people talking about it before about it becoming a renter nation over the past few years, and that's exactly what's happening. And once the institutional investors, when they own most of the housing stock, there's no going back. They're not in this for a 10-year play. They're in this for a 50, 60-year play. You might be asking, how long do we have until this actually becomes reality? Well, based on the current AI adoption rate and corporate announcements, the dominoes have already started to fall. From last year, 2024, to next year, 2026, we are in what they call the quiet phase. You know how things happen and, you go out in the world and you're like, man, if I knew about that years ago, then you know what I would be doing? And, well, guess what? That's happening right now. Things are happening right under the average American's nose. Right now, AI tools are spreading through companies like crazy. There's hiring freezes, right? And the media still says that AI will create jobs. And the truth is, corporate America is already positioning for what's coming. Starting 2026, 2029, we're going to hit that wake-up call. This will be the first wave of mass AI layoffs. White-collar workers are going to start getting cut due to automation. Then we'll have mortgage delinquencies ticking upward quarter after quarter. Home prices are going to start to soften in tech cities first, like Austin, San Francisco, Seattle. And then AI will create jobs narrative. That's going to finally die off. And then once we get to 29 and 2034, that's where we're going to have a full collapse. This is where it's going to go mainstream. Foreclosures are going to exceed 2008 levels. But unlike 08, there's not going to be a recovery because the jobs aren't going to be coming back. Institutional investors, they buy up all the neighborhoods at massive discounts, and home ownership drops below 60% for the first time since 1960. And by 2035, this is all going to be a new normal. So we're talking about 10 years from now, we're going to have a whole new American world where most Americans were renting from corporations and owning a home becomes only like a luxury for only successful entrepreneurs and blue-collar workers who are still able to work with their bodies. The white-collar middle class as we know it will be extinct. And this isn't speculation. Every piece of technology for this timeline exists already right now. And AI can replace the majority of white-collar jobs, but it's going to take longer to actually replace the blue-collar workers, like the electricians, the HVAC technicians, the people digging ditches, the people, heavy equipment operators. Like those kind of trades will be the next thing that gets automated. And those are going to be by robots. So then we're going to have actual freaking humanoid robots walking around. In fact, Elon Musk, I don't know if you guys have seen this or heard about this, look it up. He expects there's going to be 1 billion humanoid robots by the 2040s. So we're talking about 15 years from now. He's saying that we're going to have 1 billion of them. There's 9 billion people in the world. So what he's saying is that these humanoids are going to take over your job. And he's already creating them. It's not like he's like thinking about it. He's already made some. So what does this mean for you specifically? Well, there's only 3 types of people watching this right now. And what you do depends on which one you are. Maybe you're a current homeowner, right, with a traditional job, but you have the most risk right now. You need multiple income streams like yesterday. You need an AI-proof skill. You need cash reserves. You don't need to wait for opportunities. You need to do whatever you can so you don't have to hit survival mode. You need to start building all of these things today. If you have a job that you know that can be replaced by AI, then I suggest you go pick up a trade or you start that business and you don't wait until it's too late. Now, the next type of person is a local investor with some cash. Now, you're about to see opportunities of a lifetime, but you will have massive competition this time with corporate buyers. Back in '08, the local investors, they were getting a ton of rentals, guys that bought hundreds of rentals and literally sold them for like, tens and 20s and 30s and $40 million to, these larger companies later on. And they made a bunch of money real fast. But back then, corporate wasn't buying until about 2011, 2012. So you had no competition when it came to that. And right now, they're patiently waiting. So I suggest you start building relationships with all the local brokerages and come together to keep the local market strong without that Wall Street money coming in. And together, you need to inform the public of what corporate America is trying to do and why they should focus on keeping everything local to the small guy, to the local person. You need to keep local communities tight, or Wall Street's going to come and buy everything. Another thing you need to do, you need to learn creative finance. You need to educate sellers on their benefits with it, and you need to get your cash ready. When blood is in the street, you build generational wealth. And the last type of person that's listening to this today is the people that are future buyers, the first-term home buyer that wants to buy a house, wants to raise their family, right? But you need to think about buying a home. Maybe you need to reconsider. That 30-year mortgage assumes that you have 30 years of stable income. Can you guarantee that in the AI world? Maybe renting isn't a failure. Maybe it's smart for a certain time. Because will you have to move locations to keep good income? If you buy a house, you're going to be planted there. But if you do want to buy a house, make sure your payments are lower than what you could rent it out for. Just in case you have to move. You can rent it out, and profit cash each month. The old rules of get a job, buy a house, build equity are slowly dying. The new rules of modern society is adaptability over stability. You have new skills that you need to acquire. You need to have skills over degrees. You need to have multiple income sources over a single career. But here's what's really going to blow your mind. Everything I told you this far, that was all an economic side. The human side is even worse because it's not just about homeowners who are going to get destroyed or people that want to buy it or the real estate industry that's going to be disrupted. Even real estate agents are going to feel a squeeze from AI being able to show houses virtually, writing contracts, AI assistants, and there's even going to be less and less mortgage brokers since AI can process applications in seconds. And the same thing's going to go for property managers. You have automated systems that handle about everything. The very people that are selling your house and getting you approved for loans will be slim to none, and large corporations will be running the show when the human gets replaced. And that is just the beginning. Teachers, healthcare workers, accountants, lawyers, nobody's going to be safe. But do you know exactly who gets replaced first and who might survive and what we can do to stop it? Well, that's for the next video, and you got to watch it because it's about your job, your income, your future. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the ring bell so you'll be notified for the next one. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay blessed by the best and start preparing.